My name is Abina Johnson, and this is Focus on Liberia. Hit it! From Cape Mount to Cape Palmer, Mount Nimba to Atlantic Ocean, Obomi Hills to Pocondre, to educate, elevate, and promote. Talk about home affairs, in diaspora, current affairs, reliable information, history, talking about culture, politics, education, entertainment, business, sports, advertisement, articulation. Focus on Liberia. Focus on Liberia. Focus on Liberia. From Monday to Sunday.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this special edition of Focus on Liberia. My name is Dennis Jai, and we are broadcasting from Atlanta, Georgia. Today, we got the news that more government officials of the Republic of Liberia have been sanctioned by the U.S. Treasury Department. And the release from the U.S. Department read thus, and I'm going to put that on the screen. It says, on the occasion of International Anti-Corruption Day and the opening of the Conference of States Parties to the UN Convention Against Corruption, the United States is taking the following actions to promote accountability for corrupt actors around the world. The Department of State is designating over 30 individuals pursuant to Section 7031C of the Department of State Foreign Operations and Related Program Appropriations Act of 2023. Has carried forward by the Continuing Appropriation Act of 2024. The Department of the Treasury is designating 2 individuals and 44 entities pursuant to Executive Order 13818, which builds upon and implements the Global Magnitsky Human Rights Accountability Act. Section 7031C provides that in cases where there is information that officials of foreign government have been involved in significant corruption or gross violations of human rights, those individuals and their immediate family members are generally ineligible for entry into the United States and must either publicly or privately designate it. What does this have to do with us? Samuel Tweah, Liberian Minister of Finance and Development Planning, and Liberian Senators Chie and Chie Nuquay. Pursuant to Section 7031C, the United States is publicly designating Tweah, Chie, and Nuquay for their involvement in significant corruption by abusing their public position through soliciting, accepting, and offering bribes to manipulate legislative processes and public funding, including legislative reporting and mining sector activity. As part of this action, their immediate family members are also designated, including their spouses, Alicia Berry Tweah, Abigail Chie, and Rothoria Brown Nuquay, and Tweah and Nuquay's minor children. Additionally, on December 8, Treasury designated Major of Monrovia Jefferson Koji, pursuant to EO 13818, for engaging or having been a leader of an entity that has engaged in serious human rights abuse and corruption. In addition to serious human rights abuse, Koji engaged in corrupt acts, including bribery and misappropriation of state assets, and pressuring anti-government investigators to halt all corruption investigation. That's the news we got today. I have assembled one of the best teams in the country to discuss this. Let me welcome first time on Focus on Liberia, Pastor Idatus Ade. Welcome, sir.
Thank you so very much, Dennis, for having me. My greetings to all of the esteemed panelists on here. Greetings to all of you Liberians watching home and abroad. It's a privilege and a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Pastor Ade, a graduate of one of the best high schools in the country, that's St. Patrick High School, is the pastor of the Agape Ministry International in the Collindale area, Philadelphia region. Let me also welcome the unapologetic and unabashed seditious Mr. Jerome Gilman. He's the host of On Point right here in Everywhere. Welcome, Mr. Gilman.
Thank you very much for having me. It's a great day to be here.
Let me also welcome Mr. Thomas Kanner. He's a public finance guru, and he's also a panelist here on Focus on Public Finance and Policy Stuff. Welcome, Tom.
Thank you, Dennis. Great to be here. Greetings to all of our listeners, those who are listening now and those who will listen later.
Thank you. Let me welcome a co-host on FOL Marketplace. That's where we discuss business, finance, economics, issues, and everything in between, Mr. Gabriel Tabito M. Carter. Welcome, Mr. Carter.
Dennis, thank you for having me. It's good to be here.
Thank you. Let me also welcome the Senior Policy Advisor on Energy and Power. He's an energy expert. I like to call him Mr. Akana R. Phillips. Welcome, sir.
Thank you so much once again, Dennis, for being here this evening. Thank you to all of the panelists. Thank you to all of the guests around the world who are watching the program tonight. Thank you, and it's a pleasure.
Mr. Phillips. Last and definitely not the least is somebody who knows about economics, finance, accounting, and everything in between. We cannot discuss money without Mr. Larry Kennedy. Professor, welcome, sir.
Yeah, thanks so much for inviting me, Dennis. Really appreciate it. And hello to all of the panelists. Nice to meet some of you guys.
Thank you. Let me also present to Mr. Phillips. This is your Pastor Ade. This is your first time on Focus on Liberia. I want to present to you this bottle of water and say welcome. Feel at home. We are glad that you come to be with us. Thank you. All right. We want to welcome all our viewers from across the globe. If you have not done so already, please invite a friend and let's do it. Share the show as well. Well, today we got the news and I read that to you already. Let me start with Mr. Kennedy here. Before we even get into the discussion, what is the goal of this thing, the United States? Why is United States in our business? What is it trying to this Magnitsky Act and all these sanctions? What is the goal? Why?
The U.S. is trying to shape not just policies, but behavior around the world, right? The U.S. is really concerned with behavior. So if the U.S. is just focused on what's happening here onshore, because I'm based in the U.S., let me just adjust my camera a little bit. It looks like you kind of moved me out of the picture. So let's just adjust that just a little bit more. So the U.S. is doing this because they want to motivate governments, individuals around the world to kind of do right by their people. They're also doing it to kind of shape behavior and policies in those countries. But they're more importantly doing it because things that happens overseas, whether it's happening in Liberia, in Sierra Leone, doesn't matter. That thing eventually can have an adverse impact against U.S. national security right here. So they're doing these things just to kind of shape behavior. To answer your question.
Thank you. Let's go around the horn now and tell me your reaction when you first got the news that Mr. Samuel Tweah, our finance minister, Albert Chie, senator, and also Emmanuel Nuquay have been sanctioned. What jumped out of you, Pastor Ade, when you first got the news?
Well, quite frankly, I was not surprised. It was just a matter of time as we anticipated, considering the rampant corruption and abuse of public resources conducted by this administration soon to be passed. So I was never disappointed. There were several financial improprieties lingering over our finance minister that we have not gotten any conclusion on the matters. For example, the mapping of exercise of 25 million US dollars, the tune of Liberians not getting the rise of about $11 million. All of those financial improprieties consistent with audits that were not resolved, with his hands in it. So I'm certainly not surprised at all. Thank you.
Were you not surprised when they added the children and the spouses?
Well, usually that's how sanctions ought to work, because given their investigations, they've come to realize that there are individuals within governments around the world that have a tendency to hide funds through their children or other relationships. And so I think this broad band of net that has been cast to include children and spouses are in the best interest of the greater good of Liberia. And I'm very much hoping that this will serve as a deterrence to others who are incoming government, who are coming into government for that matter. So also observe that corruption without impunity has the consequence of affecting their personal lives after government.
Thank you. Mr. Gilman, the unapologetic sedition. I mean, what's your first reaction to this news? First, it was Jefferson Koji, and then weeks later, or barely a week, we have this one. What's your initial reaction, sir?
My initial reaction is totally shocked. In our jurisprudence, crime is not transferable, that we know. So for a man to be accused, not a crime, nobody have committed any crime. These are all accusations. And to say because you are accused, your children, the babies, are also on a punishment, that is unprecedented. I think Mr. Ade talked about it is something that he welcomed, but he never, in the history of the United States jurisprudence, he never gave us one example of who was sanctioned and the babies were sanctioned along with them. That is not how the American jurisprudence works. I have never seen it. Maybe Ade has. He can look at his phone now and start making the research, but he never mentioned it, and I'm looking forward to learning. But I was shocked when I will refer you to the U.S. ambassador's own comment. When somebody asked him, will these people be given the opportunity to face the accuser in a court of competent jurisdiction, he said, this is not a judicial process. This is a political process. So here we are. This is not a court of law where someone can go, where you can face your accuser, where evidence will be adduced and you will be cross-examined. That is not the case here. So these people are just being accused. And for those who were in opposition to the CDC, this is something that they would dance and talk about. But when you question those who are coming into government, what about their past record? When you talk about Amara Kone, you talk about all of these folks that were accused of massive investment. They will tell you, well, Joe, we didn't audit those people, so we want to start from here. This is the hypocrisy that we are talking about, and we are ready to fight this.
Thank you. When you say we, who you talking about, Jerome?
I am a member of the CDC, and I'm going to give my support and advice. If they can take it, that's fine. If not, so be it.
Thank you, Mr. Carter. Somebody I spoke with just before the show. I was the first to break the news, and she told me has early Christmas. Do you share that?
Well, I think I do, in a sense that with Tweah we expected that, but I personally thought that he was going to be sanctioned after the fact, after this administration was over. I know it was getting to him because, as the pastor stated, you cannot have that trail of evidence of mop up and mismanagement of public resources and not have any consequences. So for him, I thought it was going to happen after the fact, and the reason why I say that, because, sanctioning him directly, it's kind of sort of borderline indirectly sanctioning the country as well. But his term is up, so it could not happen at a better time. Now with Mr. Jerome, I want to feel your pain. I understand where you're coming from, but if you don't understand what sanction does, is that they cast that net upon you, not just you, but your entire family, because they don't want you opening any bank account under your children, your spouse's name. this is why it becomes a dragnet. It's a dragnet that it casts upon you. So that's the reason why it's always like that. It happens every day in the U.S., not just because of Liberia, not just to Liberians. There are Russian on the list. There are everybody around the country, around the world. So that's how it works, So unfortunately, I'm sorry that you're not aware of that, but that's just how it works. And
Mr. Carter, just give me one example of who was sanctioned and their children were sanctioned.
so
Thank
I
you.
won't
So
say.
let me provide that information for him. In 2022, two of Putin's adult children, Katerina Teknova and Maria, her last name is Potina, they were sanctioned.
How old were those children? How old were those children?
They are adult children in the 30s, but the age doesn't really matter.
Let me say this. Mr. Gamer, it doesn't really matter what it does.
It doesn't matter.
I want to go to
in the United States, we do not persecute minors. You know that, so don't go there.
That is, unless you're not in the financial world. This is
no, we're not talking about. I want you to quote me specific. Don't tell me. Don't come here with that vague thing about financial world.
It's not about being vague.
Hold on, Mr. Gaiman. Let me land.
Mr. Carter, quote me the specific law. Don't come here with that broad financial.
Mr. Gaiman, can you please go ahead?
Dennis, let me say this real quick, and I will end. It's you don't have to be aware of it. I work in banking sector. Larry did as well. Right? Let me finish. Don't do this. We're not here to argue over each other, or else we won't leave from here. Right?
Mr. Gaiman, hold on, please.
You get most of your
if they are not here to be specific, they don't need to be on here with them.
Mr. Gaiman, can you wait? Let him finish.
Sir,
you have your
I'm
time.
Not here.
Mr. Gaiman.
Let me land. I know you want to talk, but let me land, please. May I? So this is part of some of the things that are called Bank Secrecy Act, right? When you're sanctioned, they don't have to tell you, who's on the list. They cast a wide net upon you because they want to restrict you. It's in Liberia when we sanction people, they go free, they can go do banking activity. In the US, they sanction you. You cannot do anything at all, right? So that's what unfortunately, maybe you're aware of that, but you're just omitting that, because you don't want to admit to what is happening, but that's just how it works. I'm sorry that you're not aware of that, but that's just how it works.
Thank you. Let me go to Ekana. Ekana, what's your reaction to the sanction today? On mute, please.
My reaction is similar to what Idatu said. I'm not surprised. I was not surprised that these sanctions are being trickled. That's the word I would use. They're being trickled. They're trickling down. Every day leading up to inaugurations, there will be more and more. I don't believe, I know this is the beginning. I don't believe this is the end. And as the American ambassador said, these are not legal, these are political sanctions. So, and as Mr. Gabriel Carter said, Mr. Larry Kennedy said, this is an attempt by the U.S. As you can see, if you follow global events, you'll see that this instrument is being used by the U.S. in her foreign policy basket as a means of, as Larry so eloquently said, modifying or controlling or adjusting behavior. Since the deeper thing here is that people don't understand. When there are laws, clear laws. When you are the Minister of Finance in any way, shape, or form, and you receive USAID funding, which is U.S. taxpayer money, Larry or Gabriel, correct me if I'm wrong, that it's almost like the cheese on the mousetrap. Is extremely attractive, but you don't understand that there are laws attached to U.S. taxpayers' money. So when you receive that money into your budget and that money comes in and those monies are misappropriated, that's a crime. As far as, correct me, Larry Kennedy, and correct me, Gabriel, you guys are in the financial sector. That is a crime. In fact, I don't want to deviate, but during the first administration of Madam Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, there were a group of Liberians who got funding to set up a transport system in Monrovia called Lizard Bus. They were called Lizard Bus. Very beautiful buses that brought them in. They were running around. They were using tokens. And this funding came from the U.S. And these guys, to some degree, misappropriated this money. And some of them got into trouble because it was U.S. funding. So when this funding comes in and you sit at the head and is what? You are the minister designate for finance and planning for the Republic of Liberia. And you have oversight. You then bear the what? The ultimate responsibility. You then bear the ultimate responsibility. So I think, there's no, Jefferson was the first. Now you've got three, and now they've expanded it, not just three, but then three with their family. So it is a means, it is an attempt to correct behavior. So since, you want to create a situation in country, and it is very strategic and tactical that it is being done at this time leading into inauguration where, you're part of a global system now. This is not 1990 or 1989. All of the banks are interconnected. Everything runs on IP. So transmission and moving of funds across the ECOWAS region, across the world, they're all watched. Post 9/11 financial transactions. I mean, we all understand. I mean,
Thank you.
So you have to understand these things, and you cannot try to, assume or to make the excuse that I did not know. It doesn't work in this situation. So I think this is just the beginning. I think there are more people to come, and it is to adjust behavior so that in the upcoming government, people would think twice about accepting positions, because now they know that there are consequences to these positions if they miss. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Let me go to Mr. Kana here. Mr. Kana, what's your reaction? What's going on? And when I heard, I was thinking about this, but then I heard Nuquay, and I don't know what he has done during this time, or are they referring to when he was a speaker? What's your reaction, especially for Nuquay?
Thank you very much, Dennis. And I was just going to make that point. So among the three persons that were sanctioned, I think the only one that surprises me is the Nuquay issue. But I'm not surprised, like others have said about Samuel Tweah. When Jefferson Koji was sanctioned a few days ago, I almost posted on my Facebook page that it's going to be unfair if you sanction Jefferson Koji and others and you don't sanction Samuel Tweah. Samuel Tweah definitely needed to be sanctioned. And to me, I think the government, the outgoing government did not pay attention to signals, whether diplomatic or otherwise. The past U.S. ambassador that was in Liberia, Marco McCarthy, when he got selected or appointed to go to Liberia, at his confirmation hearing, he said he was going to Liberia not to fight corruption, but to fight the perception of corruption. So that means he was ready when he got there. And we all saw during his tenure what he did, all of the press conferences that he had. The former ambassador to Liberia, now at the UN, made a statement. When we're celebrating our 200 years anniversary, Dana Banks was in Liberia as a representative of the president of the US. She also made a statement on corruption. But they just ignored everything and went out there and did the wrong thing. So I'm not really surprised that Samuel Tweah has been sanctioned. When they came to power, they just used the resources the way they wanted to use them. And one thing I want to reference here is the $16 billion case, because somebody already mentioned the $25 million. When the $16 billion case happened, they rushed to the U.S. government, and the U.S. government hired Crow to do the investigation. And when that investigation report came out, the U.S. government released a redacted report. That means there was some information that they did not release to the public. And Samuel Tweah was all out there saying to people they should apologize to them because they lied to them. I have always insisted that the only way I will agree that no money got missing is for the U.S. to tell us what was in that other side of the report that they did not deliver to us as a public. So whether it was the 16 billion, 15 million, and everything, Samuel Tweah has been involved. He is the ringleader of everything that has happened in Liberia. And to me, I don't see him to be a smart person. If he was smart, he was going to help Tweah, and he would have built a foundation for himself for the future, but he destroyed it. On the issue of Emmanuel Nuquay, I'm now also very clear. He was the chair on the Ways and Means Committee previously in the House of Representatives. And we all do know that they use that position to be able to channel funds to their private accounts and use it in their own interest. And when he was chair of the House Committee on Finance, that was when budget defense was very critical. He used to call ministers and grill them to suppress them and make sure that they gave them money in the background. And he is today a millionaire because of what he did. But then in this election also, there were news that he eventually took money from Tweah to actually turn the PUP over to the CDC government. So I'm not very clear on it was because of his past action or because of his current action that he was sanctioned. But Tweah and Chie has been under investigation for a long period now. So I'm not shocked. On the issue of Samuel Tweah, Mr. Gamer was talking about his children. I would have loved that they sanctioned Samuel Tweah on born children so that when they are born, they are already sanctioned.
Yeah, thank you. Larry, you wanted to say something, but let me add, this is unprecedented.
Well, unprecedented. I'm not sure if it's unprecedented.
In Liberia, when it comes to Liberia.
Yeah, definitely in Liberia. But remember now, Prince Johnson's, when he was sanctioned, his wife and his children were also sanctioned. That was back in, what was it, a few years ago. But two things real quick. So I see Mr. Gayman.
You said Prince John, PYJ children were sanctioned?
Mr. Gayman, PYJ children were sanctioned. I've been saying this thing all along on social media. If you find one of my posts, I can send it over to you and send you a link as well. This was something I've been saying for years when Prince Johnson was sanctioned. His children were sanctioned as well. So you may not have known that, but I want to bring you up to speed on that. When you started off, Mr. Gayman, you mentioned that these were all accusations. But now you're saying you need examples of where children in America were charged with. It's not a charge. To go back to your own phrasing, right? You said we're all accusations. Now you're asking for Mr. Gabriel to give you examples of children being charged. Sanctions are completely different from the whole criminal system here in the U.S. So I just want you to understand that distinction, right? Also, to Mr. Phillips' point, there were Liberians who had misappropriated or used U.S. government money, stole it, and they ended up in federal prison. They were extradited from Liberia, brought here in the U.S., tried, and they were jailed for a number of years. I can't think of all of their names, but I know one of them, their name was Fumbling. So definitely, this is something that if you work in the banking sector, before we move money, I had signing authority of up to about $750 million over at JP Morgan Chase. And if anyone is moving money, I need to know exactly where that money is being wired. The reason being, because if something goes wrong, they're coming to someone like me as a vice president for an investment bank to see why is it that I signed for this money to go out. So we had to double check places that money has been wired. We were always afraid to have money wired in sub-Saharan Africa because of the risk, not just of it being used for terrorists and, like Hezbollah. Hezbollah has a footprint in Liberia, in case you don't know it, right? Some of the financiers for Hezbollah, they have addresses in Liberia and Sierra Leone. They're on the U.S. sanctions list, right? In terms of to Mr. Ja's question with Samuel Tweah, I said this on Focus on Liberia on Saturday. I said I expected Tweah to be sanctioned. Not only was he going to be sanctioned because of the all of the other shenanigans he's been in, but because he used the banking system to launder the money from that whole missing billions transaction. Liberian dollars is meaningless outside of Liberia. In order to change that to other currencies, like a global currency like the US dollar, you need USDs. The 17 million that was sent to do mop-up, that's not how mop-ups are really done. You don't give cash money to individuals and tell them go out there, connect with money changers, and then, buy LRDs. That's not how it works. That was a recipe for Mr. Tweah to get busted for money laundering. This is what I said on Focus on Liberia on Saturday. That whole STEAL Team 6, like I like to call them, they were actually out there to steal money. It was a joke. Listen, I've been saying this all along. Michael Chang, the former finance minister of Mozambique, he is right now, in July, the U.S. brought him over here to New York, and he's in jail. The former finance minister of Mozambique. Why? Because he also used the U.S. banking system for some $2 billion scam that nearly bankrupted Mozambique. So he was sitting in prison in South Africa since 2018. He got picked up, he was held, he was extradited, he fought it, but now he's over here in New York. Here's an eye opener for you. Not only
quickly, so we can go to Mr. Gilman. He wants to come in.
Mr. Gilman, I give you facts, right? Because that's how I operate. You know, as the way I have to do things based on facts. Let me say one thing real quick, and I'll swing it to Mr. Gilman. I expect at some point that George Weah will end up being sanctioned. Not only will he be sanctioned, but his wife will also be at risk. You see, this whole Globe Mag thing, when Obama signed this thing back on December 23rd of 2016, it didn't catch the United Party people because right at that time, they were leaving office.
Yeah.
So people need to pay attention to this thing. With the new administration coming in, I can almost guarantee you with 100% certainty, so United Party people will get picked up. At some point down the line, they will get snagged in this whole sanction bit. Let me swing it back to you, Dennis.
Yeah. Mr. Gilman, just before we go on to the, I know you had a reaction since, and someone even gave an example of the Kremlin kids. So they have, the Russian big people, the oligarch. Their kids, they said they were enjoying too much. But go ahead. What's your reaction to this whole sanctioning the children? And Thomas said even unborn children. Thomas, that's not going to be fair to the unborn.
Yeah, so when they are born now, you don't have to waste your time. They are already sanctioned.
The reason why the foreign nations looked at us as uncivilized and can be taken advantage of, I think on this particular show, you were fortunate to interview PLO, and he said the same thing. He says, the disgrace in Africa is that an African president will run for office in his country and he will be duly elected by his people. Instead of coming out and congratulating his folks for electing him, he will sit by his phone when he comes out. He said, ladies and gentlemen, the United States have just congratulated me. France have just congratulated. He is looking for validation. What his people have done for him is not good enough. This is what we are doing here. I have the sanction of Prince Johnson before me here. I'm going to read it to you. Prince Johnson, his wife, and one adult child was sanctioned. I have it here. This is the reason I like for us to be based on fact of exactly these things. When they are unprecedented, we have to call them out. This is what I say. I don't want people to say in the financial sector, in the gospel sector. Please be specific when you say these things. So now let's go to the sanction here.
No, hold on. You said Prince Johnson wife and adult, not minor. That's the distinction you're making.
That's the difference. Because in this country, we do not persecute minors.
So
but anyway,
the sanction is not persecution.
Thank you.
We understand this, but it's punitive. They may say it's not, but we do not punish children in this country. We know that. So let's go. Let's go.
God punish unborn children.
Let's go to the all Liberians, including you and myself, should be at the helm of praising everybody that is held accountable, as long as it is across the board. And when we're talking about human rights abuse, they talk about Jefferson Koji. Let me tell you, just recently, when a man who is known as butt naked, who had killed people that everybody knows, was in Liberia with a regalia. He called the rescue soldiers. He got a brigade. We have Yeka Kaluba, who had killed people, who admitted that he has killed people. He has his own people that he organized. These people are walking around. Amara Conant, when he was Minister of Finance, there were $13 million that came from the Japanese fund that disappeared. There's so many money that disappear these people are still around. And I want to be, hopefully, I want to be optimistic when Mr. Kennedy said the incoming administration may have people that would be picked up. If that is the case, then we know the United States is serious about fighting crime or corruption. But as it stands, I want to touch on the Nuquay one real quick. I think there have been words within the corridors of power that Nuquay is running or has intention to run for the Senate pro tem position, and it looks like he had a vote. I think this is a preemptive strike on the part of this government, of the United States, to maybe don't allow anybody who has.
Mr. Gilman, you never had cold before. How are you talking like that? Your throat is scratchy. Drink some water.
No, I don't have cold. I'm just saying.
Oh, okay.
I'm just saying this, that I think this is a preemptive strike that the Biden administration or the American may not want to do business with anybody who have done something wrong in the past. If that is the case, then the likes of Americans should be very, very careful as it goes. But when it comes to holding people accountable for corruption in Liberia, I think we all should be glad that this is happening, especially our judicial system. Those of us who have bought land 3, 4, 5 times from the same people, going to the same courts, these are things that we need to be glad about if it's across the board.
Thank you. Mr. Adi, why this time and why is this coming in like drip, drip? Today they say, well, we are celebrating this. So what's going on? What do you think is the suspicion here? What the people are saying at a time that this government is on its way out, and with Nuquay serving as ways and means years ago, I don't know if this is something new. What do you make of the timing?
Right. I think the timing is quite perfect. Liberia deserves better, and these individuals who have taken state resources, I think it becomes imperative for the incoming government to audit them. And that is why in pillar number 6 of the Joseph Yuma's vision of President Joseph Yuma's vision, President-elect rather, Joseph Boyka's vision, pillar number 6, he highly emphasized the anti-corruption and efforts to collaborate with the international community to help retrieve stolen assets by members of, the outgoing government. And, this time couldn't even be more apropos to the reality that Liberians have been deprived for the last 6 years of fundamental basic necessities around education, health, and just basic needs for their dignity and survivability under this government. So this time is right, and I'm hoping that the incoming government will be very serious about pursuing stolen assets so that they can be redistributed to the wholesome functioning well-being of the Liberian people. And, my friend, Brother Gayman, stated that it's unprecedented, but I'm glad that he finally looked at the facts concerning Mr. Prince Johnson and his children. So that was not unprecedented. So it's not that we were withholding any facts from him. We certainly told him the reality, but he challenged it. And then he saw it. And I'm grateful that he was able to see that. So sanctioning children in Liberia was not unprecedented. The precedent was set with Prince Johnson. And that's why we see it now with Senator Nuquay, his wife, Rotheria Brown Nuquay, as well as the Senate pro tempore, Abigail Chie, who is the wife of Albert Chie. So these are just the realities, and we have precedents in Liberia for that truth to be established. So I hope Brother Gilman can finally feel comfortable to understanding that this is not personal. It is for the greater good of Liberia, and we should celebrate this reality, not against the personalities, but against the fact that we have an opportunity to pursue justice for the wealth taken by individuals who did not deserve it. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Carter, is this the Joseph Newman Boakai government is coming to power and people have been hammering him down for audit and for all these things, investigate, go for asset recovery. And so far, he's not in power yet, but it's been quiet in the Boakai territory. Is the U.S. trying to kind of nudge him or kind of help him, give some help here because maybe it may not be forthcoming? Is that what you're reading?
Yeah, I think you use a key word, which is nudge. And in behavioral finance, that's one of the biggest things you can talk about, right? Meaning we're all adults. You reach a certain age where you can tell somebody to do something, they don't have to do it. However, you can influence behavior by nudging, by doing things that will almost certainly guarantee that whatever you want them to do, they will veer in that direction to do it. And as you rightly pointed out, this is exactly what the US is currently doing with this whole sanction. It's, as Larry and everybody else kept saying, the influencing behavior, influencing behavior, whether it's to have a good governance or to, you know, strengthens the tenets of what a democracy is supposed to be. These are acts that are being done to influence behavior. Now, as far as the incoming government, administration, it's incumbent upon them right now, and this is something I wanted to also say to, in a way, agree with Gaiman to a point. I hate to do this, right? It's incumbent upon them now to look at this list of sanctioned people to act upon it, right? I think we should get away from this behavior where we just have sanctioned. What do we have? How many people on there now? 9? After today, I think we have 9 people, individuals on there, right? We have 9 people on there. And I think as well, on Saturday, Larry pointed out, I think we have some companies on there that are connected with Hezbollah, right? We should get away from this idea of just having people being sanctioned or company being sanctioned to actually taking actions ourselves as a country. We cannot just have the U.S. sanction individuals and that's it. They go about like Sprint Johnson, there's Vonnie Sherman, there's Miguel, and all these people that were sanctioned. They're being, I think before they show, you show a picture of Koji being carried on his shoulder, on other people's shoulder. This is an individual who just got sanctioned. What I think this incoming administration should do, which the previous administration and the one before that never did, is to take action. You can cooperate with the U.S. government. Hey, what facts, evidence do you have on this individual? And then, take it to let them bear the full responsibility of the law, as opposed to just having these people sanctioned. Because some of these guys, there are 2 classes of sanctions, right? I don't know if you read through that. There is one that is economics, right, where these people violated economics opportunity funds of the country. You're bankrupting a country, but you got sanctioned by people outside, and your own country doesn't do anything to you. That means nobody is going to be afraid of doing such things. Because if I'm coming in as a senator, I know that if I steal money or I misappropriate funds, all I have to do is, yes, I will get sanctioned by the US, but I'm not leaving Liberia. I can live like a king in Liberia. So we have to, in as much as the US is trying to influence that behavior, we have to do our part to help them, nudge and some of those behaviors in the right direction as well. So I will leave it on that.
Thank you, Mr. Phillips. So we have corruption cases in Liberia. We've been talking about these cases. Nobody cares. I mean, we can talk about them all we want on Focus on Liberia. Nobody cares. So, and even our own local institutions, integrity institutions, they will indict someone. There's nothing. Only when the U.S. sanction before we hear all the noise, right? What do we have to pay in response for U.S. helping us always to catch our criminals? If you can unmute yourself. And if you can unmute yourself, is there some form of trying to intervene? Because it's only U.S. does it, and then we even expect more. So what do we owe the U.S. now? Because they are the one trying to do these things, and we cannot do them for ourselves.
Well, the thing is this: when grown-ups, when adult people, grown-ups, don't want to act their age, okay, and they choose to act their shoe sizes, this is what the end result basically is. Okay, I mean, this is a fundamental truth. I'll take something that Thomas kind of, one of the panelists here, Thomas, said earlier. Ambassador McCarty did something very interesting. He chose to take a convoy from the U.S. Embassy. He went county to county to inspect all of the projects that were funded by USAID through the Ministry of Finance. He went county to county, documented everything. He did a whole nationwide tour, county to county, and he came back and he gave the report. And I think part of that report, correct me, Thomas, if I'm wrong, where he said that money leaves, money comes from the county into Monrovia, but the money never goes back to the counties. Okay. So, and as Thomas said earlier, there were signals that were sent on multiple occasions, diplomatically, okay, at several different levels, but nobody paid heed to those indications or indicators or signals. To Mr. Larry Kennedy, I think, I'll even take the point from what you said and also what Thomas said. Some of these guys, they truly don't understand global networking in the financial sector. Okay, correct me if I'm wrong. When you just using the banking system in the country that connects to the Ministry of Finance to launder money. Because the thing is, what they don't understand is the US dollar, the US currency is not your currency. It belongs to the US. Correct me if I'm wrong, Larry. You're the finance, the banking sector, financial sector group. It doesn't belong to you. It belongs to the feds. And that money, if you want to move it to Ghana, cannot get to Ghana until it comes in through New York for what, 4, 5, 6 seconds, and transfers through here before it goes to Ghana. Correct me if I'm right, Larry. So that's how you transit that money through here. That's a crime. That's a crime that you've committed on U.S. territory. Am I correct, Larry? Correct me if I'm wrong. Okay. You've transmitted that money through here. And the purpose for which you're sending it and the intent, if it is outside, you've committed a crime. So some of these guys, they did this stuff out of ignorance, which is not above the law. But at the end of the day, it was taxpayers' money. So these actions are to correct behavior, because for some reason, people go into government not to serve, but they go into government to make money. That's just what we see before us today in the Republic of Liberia. You go into government to make money, not to serve. And when you get in there, it's almost like everything is a slush fund and you can do whatever you want to do with it. So if the sanctions if that's going to be the blunt instrument to put people in line and get people in order to make them behave, and maybe the signals are being sent now, or these officials in this outgoing government are going to be used as the guinea pigs, if I can use that word, so that they can set the behavior for the incoming government, then so be it. Because, I mean, why would you sit? Why, and I think probably most of all of this comes about, if I can say that, is simply because we don't have a robust private sector, because some of these people do not even belong in government. It's best for them to be in the private sector, because some of these guys can even balance a checkbook, but they end up overseeing millions of dollars. So it's best if the private sector could grow, then maybe they would be more attracted there, and maybe this blunt instrument or baton of the sanctions would make people think twice and say, you know what, right, I don't want to go into government, because if I have to go into government and play around with USAID money or whatever the case is, I don't want to end up on the sanction list. So thanks, but no thanks. Let me go and form my company and let me be a contractor. Maybe this is the way to correct or adjust behavior.
Thank you. Thank you. Thomas, the U.S., and this is coming, say, the drip, the timing, especially at the end, right? So, and some of the things that they are saying, like for Koji, one person cannot, if you say abuse of power or your office, or abusing, let's say Koji is going and he's beating people, is anti-protesters, is doing this. Well, nobody can do this alone because you have the police. So if Koji, for instance, is doing this, wouldn't you also indict the entire government? Because for what Koji is being accused of, that should be at the acquiescence of the government or the police or the justice ministry or somebody. So some of these things that they are saying couldn't have been accomplished by just one person. So why are they just picking individuals and not the entire government?
The issue with sanctioning entire governments is that you end up sanctioning the ordinary people who are already suffering the wrong things that these bureaucrats are doing. So whether it's in Liberia, we've seen in Zimbabwe and other countries, these sanctions are gradually moving away from these blanket sanctions that actually increase the suffering of the people to actually being targeted at people who are actually increasing those difficult life realities that the ordinary people go through. And this is one reason, even when Nathaniel Magay and others were sanctioned, Samuel Tweah was already like in the dragnet. Why would I thought if they sanctioned the finance minister, it was actually like just affecting the entire financial system, because Samuel Tweah works with the World Bank, with the IMF. He has to sign a lot of things. So you couldn't actually sanction him at that point in time. But now that he has few days to go and he's not even doing his job, the House has asked the Sergeant at Arms to arrest him and take him over to them because he has not developed the budget. You can sanction him at this point in time. So you don't want to sanction the entire government to actually increase the suffering of the people. Also, the issue with Jefferson Koji and others is that much of what he does is not doing it through the government bureaucracy. He has his own team of people, like it was listed in his sanction, that he has these people that he freed from prison. He has these former warlords that he controls at the city hall, and he provides resources for them. So he's actually like the ringleader. Right. So if you want to put a stop to that gang of people from increasing and actually keep on violating the rights of people, then you have to go for the head. So this is what.
But if he does that, if he did that, and the police director, for instance, is laughing, and the people that he's hurting, nobody is even punishing those who doing it, right? So I don't. Is he still the head because the police who have arrested him?
I get your point. Everything that he has done, we keep hearing these stories that whenever they are going to this side of town, they ask the police to stand down. The police are aware of what he's doing. They've not intervened to stop him. Right. But like I'm saying, actual action. But that's what I'm saying. The actual action of what is going on is Jefferson Koji. We understand that it's a long list. Maybe the police director name is there, but you won't come and sanction Koji and then you sanction the police director for just standing by for allowing Koji to do it. Let's deal with the guy who's on the ground, who actually financing these young people, drugging them to go out there and beat other people, beat students up. Deal with him first, and then eventually you can be able to get to other people. So I think it was just a point of actually quieting Koji down a bit. You can also look at his rhetorics after the president accepted the results of the elections, that the elections were stolen. He does not accept the outcome of the election. There are cases in Nimba that he's still going to take forward. He's almost like taking authority onto himself. If you don't stop this guy, there's going to be a problem out there.
Well, Koji himself is saying that this is only to silence him so that he would not contest or so that he would not hold the incoming government feet to the fire. In fact, Koji today was carried shoulder high by his supporters. Take a look. It didn't stop there. Listen to this one.
I want to let you know that. And the other aspect is to tell you, I know everybody telling me they want to hear about the biggest conspiracy. What about the sanction? What is going on with the sanction? And let me say to you, and not to be disrespectful to you, I belong to an institution. His Excellency Dr. George Manawian, he received the news of the sanction. He was devastated, and in fact he cut short his trip. He arrived in the country yesterday evening, And officially, the party will be stating its position, and the government will also state her position. So while we wait for those two major positions, we can safely say to you, our people, we are a victim of a sustained Malaysian propaganda that have consummated into what is known as sanctions. But we can say to them clearly, if this was a tactic of intimidation, if this was a tactic of trying to break us down, we want to say try harder. Try harder. We have gotten more invigorated, stimulated, and prepared for whatever that may come. But we shall not turn our back. Neither should we go down on our knees. We are prepared to stand up perhaps more than ever before. That is the issue on the aspect of sanction. That maybe to leave.
All right, you heard from Major Koji talking about the biggest conspiracy. I'm not trying to tease him. And the next one he said officially. Anyway, that was just a joke. I like when he said, when he was telling them to remain calm, he said, but that's he has a point, right? He said, this is a conspiracy. They're trying to silence me. They know Koji is fiery. He's going to go after the incoming administration to protest. In fact, they have announced already a series of protests that they're going to do. So he's alleging that this is intended to calm him down so that he won't do what he should be doing to hold the government accountable. Mr. Gilman, do you agree with Koji?
I think Koji has a point. As for me, I have been one of those who have been a supporter and will remain a supporter of the CDC as long as life is within me, because I believe in the CDC and I believe in the PAPD. One of the things that I have always said is that the CDC is better than the United Party. I think we should give the incoming government a chance to perform, and let's give them a reasonable time where when these things that they did to us that we said were wrong should not be done from day one. According to Mr. Cummings and everybody else, their job was to lobby to make the president unpopular among his own. That was from day one. And they laid out steps to do that, from protest to protest to protest to lobby in the United States. And if you listen to the tape between the congressman and Jerome Verdier, Dr. whatever his name is, and all of those folks, he says, if it relates to the sanction, just give me the list of people that you want sanctioned, okay? So we know very well when the ambassador said this is not a judicial process. It is a political process. And when Jefferson Koji says, because we are determined to hold this government feet to the fire, and he lists a few of the reasons why. The president-elect says within 90 days of his inauguration, there will be no car stuck on any major highway in the entire Republic of Liberia. We are looking forward to seeing that. When he says that the commodities, the basic commodities in Liberia will be reduced, that rice and gasoline, these are things that you and I know, you got finance people here, that nobody on the local level can actually impact.
What that got to do with the sanction, Jerome? What that got to do with the sanction about no car getting stuck in the mud?
But no, but you asking me why the young man is saying that they are targeting him. They are targeting him because he said that he was getting ready to hold the incoming president feet to the fire on the promises made, that they shouldn't only be made as promises made, like people say, oh, that was campaign talk. That's what we are hearing. Not only was it campaign talk, but manage your expectation that these things we said, we didn't mean them. This is where he's coming from, that they were ready to be fiery and ready to hold their feet to the fire and try to do that. That's what it is.
Thank you. Mr. Phillips, Prince Johnson said it was Cummings who lied on him. That's why he was sanctioned. And because of that, he's a man of God. And when you lie on him like that, you get cursed by God.
Well, the thing is this, right? So let me give you my take on most of this. The reality is are these. You come into office, you sold yourself to the general public, to the population of the entire country. You sold your policies, your programs, your projects, your intentions. You ran a good campaign nationwide. You convinced the overwhelming majority of the people you could lead this country, build this country, restructure, and move them from where they were to a greater, higher, better place. You're given the reins, the keys to the car to drive the car and move the people forward. Everything is given to you. The motivation, the hope, the dreams, the aspiration of all of 5 million people. And what did you do? Now it's somebody else's fault that you made wrong choices and wrong decisions. It's somebody else's fault. As Michael Jackson would say, you look at the man in the mirror. You made these choices. You made these choices. These were your policies. You came in with a pro-poor agenda. You said that you were going to reduce poverty and move people higher. These were your plans. And at the end of the day, where do we stand today? Forget about the U.S. Let's forget about the U.S. Who got us to where we are today? Who got us here? It's your leadership. It's your leadership. So take responsibility. You see, the most important part of being a leader is to what? Is to take responsibility for your actions. You can't come at this 11th hour and say it's because the Unity Party people said this or people wanted to make George Weah unpopular with his own people. No, you made these choices. You carry out these policies. You got to take ownership of this. You didn't create the jobs. You didn't grow the economy. You chose to do everything else other than the right thing. And then now all of a sudden it's somebody else's fault. No, you have to carry your cross. You've got to carry your cross. You can jump up and down, but at the end of the day, 6 years from now, when this country, if the Unity Party government puts in the right policies and move this country forward, people will have to answer for themselves. If the private sector grows and you can't find a job, at the end of the day, we will see where everybody ends up. So that's my take on it.
Mr. Phillips,
yeah.
What does the U.S. need to do so that the current Weah government doesn't feel targeted, right? Should the U.S. also go back the past 12 years of Ellie and start sanctioning people? Else they'll be saying that, hey, you are just after Weah and his guys.
I think Mr. Larry Kennedy made mention of a law that was signed. Am I correct, Larry? You made mention of a law that Obama signed on the financial sector, and there was a timestamp on it for it to come into effect. So if the sanctions are tied to that law, then that's why Mr. Kennedy made mention of the fact that the law came into effect just when the door was closing and one group was leaving out and one group was coming in. You get my point. He was very eloquent. He was very specific about that. So my point is this.
Don't believe everything Larry said. No, I'm kidding.
No, I mean, and the thing is this. I mean, we've got to take, we as Liberians, as old of a nation as we are, why are we having these discussions almost 200 years into our founding? This is the point.
Thank you.
I'm coming. Let me just inject something here. Here is a guy, beautiful history, born and raised in Southside in the Southeast, came through soccer, got him on the map. He's the epitome of the young people of Liberia. He was on every TV across the country over his career. Successful. Run for president, very popular and got in there. People put their hopes and their dreams, their aspirations on him. It's your responsibility to now put together a team to help these people move to what they believe in. But you fell asleep at the wheel. and you bring in a team, and the team around you start running their own businesses, and you ultimately bear the responsibility. And they're not even doing it with their money. They're doing it with other people's money. This is the point. They're doing it because, when you look at the Liberian budget, there's a whole bunch of what? Supplementals, right? Am I correct, Larry? Am I correct, Gabriel? You guys are the financial guys. The EU is supplementing this. The USAID is supplementing this. The US is supplementing this. EAD. Yes, the Japanese government is supplementing this. That's not the US. That's not the US, the Liberian government money. That money comes from the EU, from Japan, from South Korea, from China. It's supplementing in the budget because we're coming up short.
Yeah.
So, you choose to lead, you choose to govern, you make choices, you make decisions. Then you have to own up to those decisions that you made. You can't blame somebody else. The U.S. is only making sure that her money that was used and abused, those who use and abuse her money, she goes after them. Maybe the Chinese will be the next group of people to apply sanctions. I don't know.
Thank you.
Yeah. Let me just make a quick point.
Hold on. We got our FOL governance advisor coming in, joining us. So, Mr. Salif, welcome. Somebody told me it's early Christmas for Liberians. I don't think you.
No, listen. You gotta hold this man accountable. He's an hour and a half late coming to work. That's unacceptable.
No, I know where he was. He took he's a family man. He took his son to
I was on parental duty, man.
It's unacceptable. If you have parental duty, you don't make commitment to come to work.
No. This was agreed upon. Go ahead. Larry, Jefferson Koji said when the president heard this, he cut short his visit, because he was devastated, so he had to come home early. I was born in the interior where we light the torch. You light the torch and you carry it, right? You take all the bamboo, you break them apart, and then that's the light you use. They say the hand that is holding that torch is the one that feel it when it's about to burn out because it's coming close to the hand. Yes, President, we are feeling that this is coming closer. That's why you have to cut short the visit of what's going on here.
Look, here's the deal. When I see people holding Jefferson Koji that high, what was happening was Jefferson Koji is, what you're looking at is the manifestation of someone who is a clear and present danger to the safety and security of all Liberians, because the total disregard for what the sanction is all about. It also shows a failure on the part of every Liberian out there, because we're not educating our people on the impact of sanctions, right? Because anyone who is on a sanction list like a McGill or Tweah has no business being anywhere in making the laws within the country, because for two reasons. Number one, the county those guys are working in, the county cannot receive or touch, they cannot touch any U.S. government money. The U.S. cannot do business with them. So those counties, at some point, there's a downstream impact. They're going to be impacted by having a representative who is, in fact, on the sanctions list. So people don't understand that stuff. So that's a failure on the part of everybody for not educating these people. Because here's the thing, and this is something, and I think, Jerome, some of the CDC people then who are diehard supporters need to be very careful and pay attention to this, right? What I'm about to say. It's not, this whole sanction thing is new to Liberians. But people, if you're here in the US, you are at high risk of being snagged, of being caught, because you're dealing with someone who is on a sanctions list. For example, professor from Princeton University, right? He went over to Iran, did some dealings over there in Iran. By the time he landed over here at the airport in the US, he was picked up by federal agents. There was a secret indictment waiting for him. Why? Because there were information he shared with the Iranian government that was a violation of US sanctions. Same thing, senior FBI agent. He was doing business with people who were in the Russian government, Russian sanctions. They grabbed him, and now he's indicted and he's on trial. Look, this sanction is widespread. If we're not educating and this is where I'm saying that Liberians may be at risk, because at some point, if you're dealing with someone on a sanctions list, and I think this was something that was mentioned earlier as well, the banking sector, you got to be careful. If somebody's on the sanctions list, you're doing business in Liberia with someone on the sanctions list, and your bank is involved in doing anything banking related with the U.S., you can get caught with a secondary sanction. If you pay attention to the Department of Justice website, there are people constantly, banks, individuals constantly being fined heavily. And so people are at risk of going to jail because they're dealing with sanctions individual. This is all new to Liberians. They're not paying attention to it. The former Nobel laureate from Myanmar, Burma, she's in prison. She was sanctioned by the U.S. government because of what she did with the Rohingya, right, for human rights violations. Jefferson Koji is lying to the people, and it's we have a responsibility to educate our people because they don't understand the impact or the economic impact of sanctions. And to one last point, what Mr. Phillips just mentioned, and of course, Mr. Gayman, you can go and you can verify it. The work that I do, I have to give verifiable information. So let me say this real quick. In the first 3 years of the Weah administration, he received more money on average than the first 3 years of Madam Ellen Johnson's relief administration. That amount of money began to dwindle after the sanctions came out and other things started happening in his administration. There's an economic impact of being sanctioned. And of course, I said President Obama signed the law on December 23rd, 2016. So I don't know if you can go back prior to that to nab former government officials, but the one person I would think would be high on that list would have been Robert Sirleaf. Robert Sirleaf would have been high on that list because of what happened at Nuquay. One final thing. If the Unity Party people are not paying attention, there may even be a secret indictment on Tweah. Why? Even right now, George Weah still have lobbyists. So if you go to the what is the site where you have to register as a foreign agent, FARA, right? The Foreign Agent Registration Act. They have contracts in there where Tweah will sign a contract with a foreign lobbyist. He wouldn't pay them, but he was still withdrawing the money from the central bank. He was just doing a whole lot of shenanigans, a whole lot of shady stuff. Again, using the U.S. banking system to make fool of them. And when people started finding some of these things out, some of the lobbyists, they would immediately cancel the contracts, right? So there might be some secret indictment out there for Tweah to pick him up. We don't know, but eventually we will find out. And to what Mr. Khan said in terms of the redacted documents that came from Kroll, at some point, Mr. Khan, that document would be released in its entirety. It may not be right now, but we'll get a chance to see what was in there. The U.S. pick up this information because they listen to these guys' conversations. They send secret agents in there to pass off as if they're investors. That's how they get nabbed. They don't know who the true investors are. They don't know who federal agents are. They don't know any of this stuff. And the conversations are being listened to. This is the same government that tapped the phone of the German Chancellor, Angela Merkel. How the hell did they tap this from a cell phone? These guys are no joke. They have evidence of this thing. So Jefferson Koji is a clear and present danger to the security of Liberia, and Liberians want to pay close attention to that.
Before you pass the mic, also, because sanctioned people, so I'm here now thinking, who else took money from sanctioned people? Like we have reports, even though not that they have money coming from Liberia to the United States, paying talk show hosts and other people. What do you see there? Is it possible? And we also see, I don't know if we have campaign finance laws, people in the United States, whatever money they're using, financing campaigns in Liberia.
So if this happens before the person,
such money?
If this happens before the person was on the sanction list, the U.S. is not going to pick it up. But right now, someone on the sanctions list, if you're moving money with that person, I'm saying this from first-hand experience, right? Because one of the individuals on the sanctions list wanted to hire an attorney over here in the U.S. to represent him. And the first thing the attorney told me was, listen, the problem is, how is he going to pay me? Meaning the attorney. There's no way the attorney can take money from him because he's on the sanctions list. So individuals who are over here who are receiving money before the person was on the sanctions list, fine. But there's a line in the sand right now. If you start receiving money from people on the sanctions list after they're sanctioned, be careful. Because like what Mr. Phillips said, everything that comes through SWIFT, whether it's to the Federal Reserve Bank, in the U.S. banking system, it has to be reported. If it's over 3,000 or so, it has to be reported to the U.S. Treasury. People will get snag in this whole sanction bit is still new to Liberians. They're not paying attention to it. But we who've been in the banking sector for about 40 years or so, we know what's coming. We know what's coming, right?
Thank you. Let me bring in Mr. Salif now. Mr. Salif, welcome and thanks for coming. I know I saw the pictures. Thanks for daddy duty. But here's the thing. I want to look at the impact of all this on both the present government and the incoming government. And I want you to pay close attention to the guys in the legislature, right? We have the old and the new, starting with Prince Johnson was sanctioned. Chie now, Bill Tweah and McGill coming in. We also have, so all these people, what's going to happen? You know, how is it going to impact? Is it going to put more pressure on Mr. Boubacar to do more because we didn't see that coming? Or because when I saw this picture today, I'm saying, okay, what is the next by-election that Koji going to surface and run for the House?
Mm-hmm. Yes, thank you, Dennis, and co-panelists. Apologies. Sometimes family duties, are number one for me. It closes the space. It closes the space of government-to-government interaction, counterpart-to-counterpart interaction. Who is your interlocutor? If your interlocutor, if you risk what I call enforcement action, that's what Mr. Kennedy and others were speaking to. If you're in the U.S. government or a legislator in another government in another country, you would normally engage in some kind of conversation with your counterpart. So that you invite them, they invite you, or you meet at conferences. These individuals cannot go to conferences in Europe. They cannot come to conferences in the United States. Other legislatures will not do business with them. Foreign direct investors who understand the implications of these enforcement risks will not do business with them. And therefore, the Liberian government itself is squeezed. I don't care who the president is. You have legislators, lawmakers who are under U.S. federal Treasury sanctions. That certain government delegations, these individuals cannot participate. They may not even participate in certain negotiations because your counterparts or whoever your interlocutors are will be concerned about running the risk, running afoul of U.S. government sanctions. So, of course, it has wide implications across the government and how government-to-government businesses are conducted between countries. And nationally, like Mr. Kennedy was saying, nationally, right, in business sector, how even you interact with your own constituents. Some of these individuals in these counties who know what they're doing will be very careful not to go around these individuals. They will be well advised to stay away from these individuals. Because if you have a relationship to the United States, maybe you have some kind of business connections or you travel to the U.S., you have families in the U.S. and things like that, this thing could jeopardize all kinds of things. Even if you are a U.S. citizen, and you think that, you can't be sanctioned or so forth. In fact, there are laws on the books here in the United States that could implicate you in doing business, engaging in sort of corruption abroad or interacting with corrupt individuals who have been sanctioned under United States government laws. So, the wide-ranging implications to this it doesn't bode well for our country. It doesn't bode well for the government and for the Boubacar administration coming into office soon.
How much pressure does it put on the Boubacar government?
Well, a lot of pressure. I mean, they have to, if they're looking at it strategically and they truly understand, and I believe they do, they have very smart people around them. They truly understand the implications of these things. Now, mind you, the ones you cited in the legislature, those who are senators and representatives and so on who are sanctioned, that's a separate branch of government. A lot of the president's legislative agenda will have to be negotiated with and through those individuals. Look at budget, for instance. The budget is a law. And so to pass the budget or to even ratify certain international obligations, you have to go through the Senate. To assent to certain treaties, you have to go through the Senate. So for countries that will be party to such treaties will be very careful. They want to understand who are these legislators, who are the senators sanctioned in the Liberian government. So, of course, any sitting administration will have a lot of work to do, will have a lot of explaining to do, a lot of negotiating to do, and not only negotiating internationally with those people who have concerns, but domestically, because you go to somebody like Prince Johnson or Bill Tweah or Nathaniel McGee and others and say, look, you can't get involved with this because of the sanction situation. Of course, they'll be upset. So this is Liberia. This is our law. This is our country. We're not Americans. It's not America. That's how people talk about this. But it has the implications are way beyond simply sovereignty questions. The sanctions are not here to say, okay, so we have sovereign authority over your people. If you look at this very recent bash today and against Tweah and others, there were several countries whose citizens, whose politicians, corrupt officials were also sanctioned. Right, so this is a practice that the U.S. government engages in to hold people accountable globally, and to suggest that you don't care, they can bog you down, whatever it is. It means that you do not understand anything really. You do not understand the powers of these United States of America, and how you do not understand geopolitics. To be honest, I mean, this is not about, again, oh, we're a sovereign country. If we don't indict our own people, we don't prosecute them, there's due process. Of course, there's due process and all of that. If the implications of the sanctions are that the U.S. government shared some information with the Liberian government, of course, we encourage the Liberian government, the Barker administration, to investigate, look into this, maybe establish some kind of commission of inquiry, this asset recovery and things like that. It gives you a leeway to investigate these individuals, recover ill-gotten wealth, and things like that, and funds, and bring them back, repatriate them back to the government and the people of Liberia.
Thank you.
Mr. John.
Before you come here, I just want to show this picture. Whether Mr. Salif can recognize anyone in this picture.
There's the shallowest young man way to my far right. There is a wonderful musician and artist. So we went to see them, and him and his colleagues performed tonight. It was great.
Mr. Ade, I was talking to someone who said the U.S. need to do more. You're a church guy. Say, what more do you want Jesus to do, right? What is more for America to do? Because we've seen sanctioned, starting with Vani Shema. I mean, Prince Johnson was sanctioned. He became head. Even as a former warlord, he was in charge of our security. So should the U.S. do more? And what is that more?
Dennis, the U.S. has already done enough to protect their economic national security. When the outgoing U.S. ambassador was leaving, Ambassador McCarthy, you notice that he encouraged Liberians to stand up for themselves. And he used the Latin word, carpe diem. Like, what more can we do? He was so passionate when he was encouraging us to stand up for ourselves against the pillage of our resources by this outgoing government. So the U.S. government can do nothing more. She's done everything she has done to protect her national security as far as banking transactions, among several other things. They do not want these individuals transacting business with them that could compromise the integrity of their economic system. So what we need to do as Liberians, this is where we can act in keeping with our sovereignty, to initiate the process, hopefully under President George Weah, of investigation, something that most people doubt, or the incoming government can set up a committee of inquiry, as many of us have already stated, to start to investigate these realities and potentially ask for the evidence. But the outgoing ambassador stated, what more can we do? The evidence is in your report. Ambassador McCarthy said it. What evidence do you need against Bill Tweah and Cephas, among others? He stated it. The evidence is right here in your own report. But we did not have the political will as a nation under President George Weah to initiate and prosecute these people under due process to see whether or not they may be convicted or exonerated from potential crimes committed that were financial. Now, for the incoming government, it's clear that pillar number 6, as I stated earlier on the Joe Boyka, he intends to do what you call an asset recovery. And we're certainly hoping that this may become a reality through the legal process, not witch hunting, as many have politicized it. In as much as we want to reconcile our country, I think accountability is also necessary. But in the words of Jefferson Koji, he claims that this is a sustained malicious propaganda that has gotten him here. But he clearly ignores and remains unremorseful of the fact that he has been consistently committing crimes, as evidenced by the flogging of the youthful Liberian students that demonstrated at the U.S. Embassy, his constant involvement in all of these different violence in the country, with his name being mentioned. And not to mention the fact that this entire sanction is a making of this government's doing through the infestation of drugs in our country, to the tune of $100 million caught by the U.S. government, followed by another $40 million of cocaine. So these are just the reality that, one cannot shy away from. You have to be delusional not to believe that these sanctions came based on evidence and not in a vacuum. Liberians have seen it. We've seen the reckless construction of properties around the nation. We've seen the lavish lifestyle they've been living. We've seen that their lifestyle do not account for the salaries that they make. So these sanctions are of their own making, nothing new. So for them to believe and think that people were watching them, Liberians knew it. But how do you fight against a government when you do not have the capacity to do so, when everything is muya muya, or either you are threatened or killed, like the auditors that died, or not to mention Melvin Early, who died for shooting himself 3 times in the head, according to the president. So for any of us to sit here and think that these sanctions existed in the vacuum, that's not true at all.
Can I push back, please?
Right. Before you push back, let me announce this is Focus on Liberia. We are between the headlines. If you want to join the conversation, please call 605-313-6004. The code is 791403#. Mr. Gaiman.
This is why people say they not only the judiciary, but the council of churches, or people who call themselves the moral compass, like this preacher here, Mr. Adi. I thought he was somebody who would come to these debates with some fact. At least if you don't have the fact, you say allege. But he's not even alleging. He's saying that these things are fact when he says auditors were killed by Jefferson Koji. This administration brought in $100 million drugs and all of these things. It tells you that these people don't mean well for our country. Now, let me get down to this. When we talk about, I think Mr. Salih talked about sanctioned officials and those who do business with sanctioned officials. I think you saw Prince Johnson had been one of those that was sanctioned. Yet and still, President-elect Joseph Boyka said, I can dance with any devil as long as I get my inward completion.
I was working with him.
Excuse me, I'm talking on a particular subject here. Okay? The incoming president had done business with Prince Johnson. In fact, Prince Johnson became one of the the face of the campaign. Not only that, but on the Spoon Network, where Joseph Boyka and Prince Johnson appeared, they raised money. In fact, one time, the convicted felon, Stanton Watterson, said they raised $300,000. And for those of you who are in the banking sector here, if it's true, how did that money get from the United States to Joseph Boyka's campaign? How did it get from here? Some of that money obviously went to a collective campaign for Prince Johnson and many of the other folks. So these are things. We are not talking about sanctions. Sanctions, if they are fair across the board, that's fine. If it's not fair, if you're going to leave Prince Johnson, you're going to leave Yeka Koluba, you're going to leave Butt Naked. These are people who form their own militias, call themselves rescue defenders or rescue soldiers. And you have these people around.
And you have the facts.
That's the fact.
But it's not alleged that some of the money went to Prince Johnson.
Exactly, right?
No, it's not an alleged. Butt Naked was here. He showed his group. He called them the rescue soldiers. Everybody saw the red shirt. He turned his back. It's written there. They all have it. This is not what here we say. So these are the things we are talking about. The sanctions are good as long as they are across the board. In fact, Joseph Boyka himself said it. and they were indicted by the international community for writing 68 bogus concession agreement that robbed the Liberian people. Out of 68, 66, only 2 of the 68 were similar to be in the interest of Liberia. And just like what I said, admitted that they squandered these opportunities. The Port Authority deal, Mr. Snow came back and apologized that it was a terrible deal that they wrote because we all know how it came into being. So when we are talking about sanctions, nobody here is opposing sanctions. It is a good thing, but let it be broad-based. Like you said, if Carter said, if it's a dragnet, then let our dragnet include everybody and let everybody account for their crimes.
Thank you. I don't want you to appear that you're on a fishing expedition now.
Can I make a point?
Yeah, quickly, and then we bring in our
just quickly. Mr. Gamer said something I wanted to clarify. The U.S. ambassador did say that this is not a judicial process, but he meant for the U.S. government. That means the U.S. government is not going to take these people to court. But it does not mean that this cannot lead to a judicial process in Liberia. If the Liberian government does ask for the evidence and want to prosecute, they can prosecute. So it can lead to a judicial process in Liberia. I have said repeatedly, what more evidence, for instance, do we have? Nathaniel McGill, in 2018, this guy was borrowing $200,000 from LBDI to buy a house. And then after that, he becomes this kind of millionaire where he goes to a very big county like Magibi and run a sustained Senate election campaign and win the election. Before that, he's building all over in Bapolu, in Nimba, and other places, and giving scholarships all over. Do these resources that he's using match his salaries over these past 6 years? So, like somebody said, it's just the issue of political will. Once the government of Liberia decides to be able to move forward, they should prosecute these people. And I think we are moving away from Samuel Tweah. But if I can just make a point, the way Samuel Tweah, our budget growing from 500 million to 800 million, our domestic revenue growing from around 400 million to 600 million, almost reaching to 700 million. Budget is growing, but hardship is growing. That does not align with any economic theory. When the budget is growing, it means the economy is expanding. That means the government is collecting more revenue. But then things were getting difficult in the country. Even the GSC is not able to audit government institutions because they are not even completing financial statements. Samuel Tweah will put this $1 million in the budget for you, but you won't even get it. And so everything, all the systems that were put in place, this guy broke it down. And he was still robbing the international community with the census. He would carry the process and stick it somewhere and risk Liberia getting into a constitutional crisis. Then everybody will rush and give money. That's what he did with the census process. He wanted to do it with the elections. He started giving signal that there is no money for the second round because he wanted people to rush in to come and bring money so he could use it. So among all of them that have been sanctioned, I like the Samuel Tweah one.
So, Dennis, let me say this real quick.
No, I want to bring in the colors. They've been waiting for so long. So let's take 30-second break and bring in the colors.
Our country, sweet Mandela, our country, that God gave all this country. Fellow Liberian, that God gave all this country. We are calling on everyone here to come and pray for this country, Liberia, God gave all this country.
Indeed, God gave us this country, so let's do our best to sustain it, to make it the greatest country on earth. Let me bring in my colors here. We have colors already lined up. Colors, please be very brief. You have 59 seconds each of you. Let's start with Mr. Elvis Morris. Mr. Morris, you're live.
Thank you, Mr. Jai, and hello to the panelists. I think Joseph Boyka has a conundrum on his hands, because if he's going to prosecute these, quote unquote, sanctioned individuals, the first person he needs to start with is Prince Johnson. if Joseph Boyka thinks he can prosecute, the other guys, the Koji's and the Tweahs, without touching Prince Johnson, he has trouble on his hands. And lastly, just to correct you, I think you mentioned that George Weah was working with Prince Johnson. That was prior to him being sanctioned. And once he got sanctioned, his reason for now re-upping with Prince Johnson, for his support, was the fact that he was sanctioned. He was not going to do business with him. So the American government is very strategic in how to get you out of power. They're not going to do it by violence. They're going to find ways to maneuver you out of power. And they tied this president's hands by sanctioning his right-hand man, by sanctioning Prince Johnson, and even warning you that if you do business with him, you risk being sanctioned yourself. But of course, the person who did business with him, there was never a peep from the U.S. government or the State Department that Joseph Boyka could be sanctioned by doing business with Prince Johnson. So for me, I think overall, when it comes down to it, Joe Boyka has to set the example with Prince Johnson, because of all these people that were talking about being sanctioned, he was one of the first people, even before the Nathaniel McGill sanction. He and Vonnie Sherman was sanctioned first.
Yeah.
So he'd been sanctioned long before any of these guys. So Joseph Boyka should start with Prince Johnson and Vonnie Sherman before he even go to Nathaniel McGill, to the Bill Towers, who was sanctioned.
So Alex, what you make of the sanctioning of today's sanction? What you make of the three guys?
Right, like you said, the sanctions is political. It has no bearing on us domestically unless the incoming government wants to, put their, wants to go and prosecute these guys.
Thank you.
And in doing so, they'll be tying themselves into a bind because they have to prosecute Prince Johnson. If they don't do it, it will be seen as selective prosecution. That's the point. That's the conjuring here. Thank you for taking my call. Leave it there.
Thank you. We hope that President Weah at least started with that selective prosecution. Then at least we have one person off. Mr. Aliyu Kamara.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Dennis, thank you for having me. Dennis, you need to clarify to Mr. Gilman that Stanton Witherspoon was never sanctioned. Stanton, there was no warning put out there by the United States government that no one should do business with Stanton Witherspoon. Another thing you also have to make people understand is when someone says you shouldn't do business with Prince Johnson, it doesn't mean Prince Johnson cannot support you politically. Now, what is business? When it comes to the Americans, people need to try to define that. But here's where I stand with the whole sanction issue. I strongly believe that Joseph Boyka would not prosecute anyone on the basis of sanction. What I believe will happen, though, is all of these agencies that these guys headed or have been held will be audited, and if they are found guilty of any financial malpractices, then under the Liberian law, according to the Liberian law, these guys should be prosecuted. But for me to just say if it's a political sanction, then I don't think it worth Joseph Boyka's time. But I strongly believe that Jefferson Koji has committed a lot of human rights violations. But I am speaking this under Liberian law. If he is found guilty under Liberian laws, I think Jefferson Koji will be prosecuted. But
thank you.
A lot of people go on sanction and they get off sanction. I think we're making too much of it. Not everything that comes from us in America is actually correct. Sometimes we're human and we have our own intentions too. But it has been a great show. Thank you for having me. Let us be people who have our own minds sometimes that can make our own decisions and not just scream around here because something comes down from the State Department. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Emmanuel Soma, you're live. Hello, thank you for calling. Emmanuel, are you there? All right, let's go to Emmanuel Jackson. Another Emmanuel.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
So for me, I'm not too much interested in politics. I'm always interested in the economic.
The economy of politics.
Area. Yeah, of course, yeah, but it's politics too. But I'm mostly interested in building those building blocks that will see economic improvement in the lives of the people. Like Akana said, we have to grow up. Why is it Liberia is being ignored? We have Vice President Kamala visiting Ghana. She didn't even visit Liberia because what? We are not growing up to the point where we should be trusted with money given to us to build those institutions. Right now, we still have the issue of malaria. We have not fought to eradicate malaria. We still have about 76% of our people defecating on the outside. These are building blocks that we should have accomplished long time ago. So I think the problem here is why we see most of these sanctions. It's not so much that they're trying to target individuals, but they're trying to tell you you have to grow up and build your economy and make opportunities that people can come to Liberia. Even Liberians abroad, they would love to go home someday to retire. But if you're not building the economy in a way that people can come in and have a free movement around the country, it's going to be difficult for those who run the government. They will be falling into sanctions because the people are pouring money into Liberia so we can build institutions, so we have not even accomplished like building up our electronic system with the central bank. I'm hearing that they're carrying bags of money staying to the central bank instead of things being channeled through electronic banking. So these are basic services that we need to build. And I think the Americans, the world as a whole, will be able to assist us more and more, but we need to grow up and leave this insatiable appetite to get rich from government money. It will work. And this is where we have all these problems. So that's all I want to say.
Thank you, Emmanuel. Let me bring in Emmanuel Soma again.
Yeah, I'm here. How you doing? Yes.
Good. Thank you for calling. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah. So first of all, let me start with Mr. Kennedy, who said that Samuel Tweah saying that the economy is growing, but the people are suffering. It is, Mr. Kennedy, it's not Samuel Tweah report. It's a World Bank report. And I know that you're a widely read guy, and also the MCC comparative report that just came up for 2024. Samuel Tweah is the first prime minister in the history of Nigeria to pass 16 out of 20 MCC comparative reports. And you get good governance, you fight against corruption, and the rule of law. It's not Samuel Tweah saying. It's the international community and the United States government as says it. But you know that there is no politics. That it's all about hate and envy. People will just come and they say, oh, they will see coaching. They will not show you one evidence. For example, the revenue who said they will see coaching was behind the flocking of the problem from the University of Blood by the U.S. Embassy. He did not say alleged. These are some of the antichrist or agents we have in our midst. How can a man of God just accuse someone without any evidence?
Oh, and you just accuse him of being antichrist. What's your evidence?
Because he's saying no man of God will just a blank statement on an innocent person without any evidence. A man of God speaks with passion. You don't just talk that you're the antichrist. You don't say, and we were in the last day. There are a lot of days around. Now let me come up to the session of the government official. Let's be real. Liberia problem is bigger than the session. If you sanction Samuel Tweah because you sold 10 million, and you cannot sanction Robert Teddy for make money 80 million, that is just a political sanction. If you want to sanction Devonsi Kochi because he made money 1.5 million, and you cannot sanction Amarakone for make money $13 million, and we as Liberia we start breaking it. It just proves that 85% of the population in Liberia are suffering from chronic illiteracy. Okay. That's why we suffer. That's what Donald Trump said. Africa is a shithole continent. And until Africa can realize that we are a shithole continent, we will continue to be fooled by the West.
Thank you, Mr. Soma. Let me go to Mr. Livingston Flomo.
Is there any commentary in
Dennis, great show. I mean, I learned a lot today from the panelists. You know, people come up there. For me, I'm in favor of the session, okay? Wholeheartedly, I'm in favor of it. And let Jamaji go, walk around and feel like he's a tough guy. At the end of the day, when he go to bed in the night, he don't want to be going through the stress and depression. Like, he don't want to be worrying. All the guys in our own strength, in the day, they can walk around feeling like they're tough guys. But in the night, they don't want to be stressful and depressed. Look, Jerome Gilman, you accuse someone of not using alleged. According to you, said JMB and Prince Johnson raised funds on Spoon TV and Prince Johnson used some to run his campaign. But you didn't use alleged. But you didn't provide no evidence. That's complete hypocrisy. You know, how will you accuse someone of not using alleged, but you're doing the same? Look, for me, the incoming government, they should take note. If you come and you think you'll do the same what the CDC are doing, they'll come after you. They'll come after you. And I want JMV to put in place system to bring these guys in, to carry them through court and ask the American government for evidence. So the guys that will have to set a precedent, and JMV have to do that, because we'll be behind him, and we'll make sure he carry the guys into court and audit the outgoing government. If people consider it a wish on, it's up to them. They can do whatever they want to do. But I mean, for the session, even the incoming government that come in, when they do the same, the American government should sanction them, and people should declare the access before even working in the government. They should know that working in government is not to get rich, but to serve the people. If you come to work in the government, you should come and serve the people, not to get rich. You want to get rich, go in the private sector and do that. And I want to thank the American government and let them continue doing that. And that's Jefferson Koji keep acting like he talk. He won't be going through the depression and stress in the night. Thank you, Dennis.
Thank you, Flo.
Dennis, can I say a couple of things before I hop off real quick? Let me just say a couple of things real quick. Is that okay?
Yeah, go ahead.
So, real quick. I know the gentleman, I think his name was Somai, was praising Samuel Tweah, but there's a Somai, let me just explain.
Was using all kinds of foul language. We don't really want to.
No, just a couple
I didn't want to
quick.
dignify that, but
No,
go ahead.
So Samuel Tweah, as a finance minister, you had 36 months of economic decline. Nowhere have I seen someone have 36 months of economic decline and consider themselves the best finance minister, right?
Yep.
So you had a situation where inflation was extremely high, you had high unemployment, the economy never grew for 36 consecutive months.
There you go.
And they were begging the IMF to not make payments on borrowed money because they couldn't make it, right? He had some of the largest budget shortfall in the history of the country. So Samuel Tweah had no clue when it came to banking and finance, right? The second thing is, when you look at the MCC is grading you based on other people within the same region, within the same level. For example, if you're taking a math exam, there's 10 people in the class, right? The highest score you can get is 100. But if everybody in the class is getting 40, they are grading you based on that 40%. Doesn't mean that you pass the exam. They're simply saying that this is where you rank based on the other person who got 40. So the MCC saying that you pass, it simply means that everyone in that whole region, you guys are doing poorly. Right?
Yes, exactly.
So you need to understand some of these things before you really hop into it. And to the last point on Jefferson Koji, understand this. Liberia is a party to the Rome Statute. The ICC can grab Jefferson Koji and put him on trial for human rights violation. People need to understand that. You don't have to wait for the department, for the Ministry of Justice and other people in Liberia to prosecute him, but the ICC can in fact prosecute him. It happened to the former president of Ivory Coast. So there are things you need to really understand, and I think it has to do with being educated. I don't know a whole lot about Liberian politics. I do not discuss politics. That's why I sit on the economic profile show with FOL, because that's what I've been doing for about 40 years, right? But I can tell you this. The incoming administration needs to be, I will say this, and I said it earlier, they need to be extremely careful, because that whole sanction thing that was signed by Obama on December 23rd, 2016, that's Executive Order 13818. It's going to grab some people in the future in the party if Mr. Boyka doesn't come in and put in place the kind of governance that Liberia so dearly needs. People need to pay attention to what's happening out there. So I just wanted to drive that in there before I really hop off, because I have an early start tomorrow morning. But I want to thank everybody for being here. Mr. Phillips, pleasure meeting you. Reverend, I love talking to Mr. Kanye and my brother Carter. Certainly, I'll catch up with you guys. I'll listen to the rest of the show offline. Thanks so much, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, Larry.
We have two more callers here. Tavina, you're live.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So good show tonight. Everybody's thanking America for the sanction. I personally, I'm disappointed to the extent that America has to tell us what to do and how to do it, how to govern specifically. Or old country like Liberia, teach them how to govern and how to hold the state officials accountable. It's a shame. And even after they do it, we cannot take the necessary steps to do the rest of it, to hold the state officials accountable. So, I mean, I'm hoping under this new leadership, since they're preaching all these change, they're going to do this and do that. I hope that they would take all of these steps, these sanctions a bit forward, and hold these people accountable. Versus, yes, America sanctioned them, everybody, happy, and that's it. And then the government that's supposed to do the work that America is doing, and they do nothing. And these people get into power, they get, passing around scot-free like they did nothing. And so we're watching them, we're following, and we hope that they do the right thing this time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Solomon Sampson. Solo.
Hello?
Yeah, go ahead. You're live.
Yeah, my name is Perkins. I'm calling from Fargo, North Dakota. Good evening to all the panelists.
Good evening.
And my own big brother there, Thomas, for the last 2 days, the 2 times the show was on, I was waiting for him. He wasn't around. But I just got off work and the show is on, and I think you guys let me call once a night or so. So I decided to call. I'm excited. I was driving, coming in, I heard the information that Samuel Tweah now is on the list of detention. That's exciting, The one thing though that Joseph Walker will find difficulty with to begin with is how to prosecute these guys, because one or two guys were saying about President Johnson being on sanction. Now I don't know what President Johnson sanction entails at the time. I also believe what's the name? The other guy was also on sanction. Maybe he's not now. Now. America's sanction might not. They have documentations to probably give the government to go through prosecution for these guys. But what scares me is the fact that we have government officials. But let's forget the government officials, the cabinet members and stuff like that. Lawmakers, I think our Senate and our House and are all on sanction for reasons that we all know. Even when we don't have the physical evidence in our hands right now, the American government is helping us, and I know they have evidence to work these things. So it's so scary that we got these people in the country and they are responsible to make laws to govern us. I don't know how Joseph Barron is going to begin this, but in my opinion, to be realistic, when we're having conversations all the time, my friends and myself, even though we have a democratic system of government, but it is not working, obviously, I don't think we should even have a judicial, not judicial, even a judicial too, but the other form of government, whatever they call it, those guys that are making the laws.
Yeah, we shouldn't have the legislative branch. That's a different argument. So let's stick with the sanction tonight.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, but thank you.
You can see the ignorance in Jefferson Koji and the same talks that he carried around, and instead of reading and trying to, re-energize himself for negative reasons. But to be honest, the sanction is a start point for GND.
Yeah.
GND is kind of old. I'm afraid they still have the energy to really get down on some of these things before it gets too late. But we hope for the best, But the sanction to begin with is a good start.
Thank you. We have 2 callers here, and time is fast spent. I want you to give you 30 seconds each. Ibrahim, Kale, and 1 wireless caller. Ibrahim, go ahead. 30 seconds.
Yeah. Listen. I'm driving, going to Texas. I'm a truck driver, and I'm listening to you guys. But listen, let me just go straight to the point. Whether anybody who's supporting this person's government, like it or not, George Weah will be sanctioned. I can tell you that for fact. I mean, probably maybe the American just waiting maybe two days to inauguration, or maybe right after inauguration. But it's a fact.
Right.
Everybody knows that. Everybody knows that it's coming.
Please call us back 2 days after inauguration to prove that.
I will.
All right.
I will. And another thing I want to say again, I really don't know. I really don't understand that in Liberia at this moment, at this time, looking at where we came from. 176, 78 years, almost 200 years, and you still want to sit and say you want to back the people that are bringing the country down. I mean, you should be ashamed of yourself, man.
Thank you, brother.
I think it's not fair to the Liberian people. We need to do better, and we want our country to progress. We want our country to be among countries of nations. And so let us back the right thing. Let us be behind the people who are willing to transform our country. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And drive safe, okay?
Okay.
Our last caller, 330 area code. Your name and where you calling from?
330-265.
Yes, sir.
Okay, my name is John. I'm calling from Ohio.
Your name is what?
Okay, I don't know if you got John.
Oh, go ahead, Jerome.
Calling from Ohio.
Go ahead, sir.
I don't know if you guys had any discussion on what's going on in Liberia. You guys are journalists and you guys are intellectuals that are supposed to be forming Liberian people.
Mm-hmm.
We had election. We had the president elect. He's gone out of the country. Nobody knows where he's at, where he's going. You guys not reporting on anything on that.
How you know?
I think what follow you guys.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know what he's doing. We don't see any pictures of him. President elect. Okay. Now, George Weah was the president. He's the president. Everywhere you went, you guys are, he led the country. He going to do this. He going to do this. But nobody reporting what Joseph Boga is. His vice president is.
He's not president yet. So let's talk about the president and the sanctions.
He's the president elect. He's president elect.
What that got to do with the sanction?
Where is that now?
Mm-hmm.
No. Okay, with the sanction now.
Yeah.
With the sanction, we had Ellie for 12 years.
Oh God.
His son. And no, they should have, I don't care. They can have sanctions for everybody, but it should go across the board.
All right.
But it seems like people just speaking on the current government. What about all the other people?
Okay.
Think what they say, what Liberians.
Thank you. And when you go to the other people, then they will say, "What about the people on the door? What about the people on the Charles D.B. King?" So we keep going.
No, not Charles D.B. King. We just had these guys for 4 years.
Okay.
Everybody in the government, they let's just be fair. That's all.
Right. No,
they can sanction everybody.
I asked that question, Jerome. They say the new law, they signed it 2016. So that 2016, 2017, we're starting from, so we can go back.
So they're saying 8 years ago, 12 years ago, everybody at anything they can go free.
No, they're not saying that. The United States now of power and man, right? So Mr. Weah had the opportunity to even investigate the other people. Well, he grabbed Charles Sally, you go low. Soon the Omar came from away. He just said, my hand on there. So
no, I'm talking about the sanction America giving all the people.
Yeah, America now.
Nothing. The finance minister at the time, nothing. But now they're giving sanction. They put sanction on all the other people. Like people look at it as not being fair.
Right.
You know?
But do you believe that those people should be sanctioned, or you talking about fairness?
Oh yeah.
Have they done
They should be.
Let Tweah now. Should Tweah be sanctioned?
If they have evidence that they did something wrong,
you put if there again.
Have evidence, it's a sanction.
Okay.
No. Obviously, they have evidence. They should sanction them.
All right.
But I know they got evidence of other people too.
Thank you. You know, fairness. Sometimes fairness hard to talk, right? Because even God not fair. He said, "Esau I love, Jacob I hate." So sometimes fairness is not. We can. But at least if they can get one bad guy, whether the 10 can go for me. At least let's start with that one, yeah.
I mean, yeah, that's what you say, but if I were you would say the same thing.
No, man, I don't feel sorry for people that are broke. So if they are actually thieves,
no, I'm not saying that.
Mm-hmm. If they are actually thieves, let them catch. Even when they can catch one, we made the same argument during the war. They say, "Oh, why the TRC get only this? They're supposed to get all." So you want to tell me if 100% killed, when we get 50, we should let them go because we didn't get all 100?
No, I'm not saying let everybody go.
All right.
Get everybody.
It's not easy to get everybody, my brother. It's not easy. So at least when they get two, say, let beat their butt. Right?
Okay, but then the two should be across the board. You can just take two from one family, the other family go free. That's what I'm saying.
So which family you know?
Trying to bring a kind of
Dennis, he said that's supposed to be 30 seconds.
Yeah, they don't dare.
All right, thank you, man.
Hold that accountable.
Thank you.
Other people should be accountable too.
Thank you. accountability across the board, guys. All right. Those are our callers, our time. I wanted for us to be very within the time. So let's conclude tonight. I know it's been a great show. I really appreciate you guys coming on just at less than 1 hour notice. I really appreciate your time. Let's go around the room if you want to react to the callers or make your final comments, 2 minutes each, so we can draw down the curtains. Mr. Phillips, let me start with you.
Well, thank you once again for being on the show. All I'll say is this: most of the callers were talking about being fair across the board. The implementation of sanctions on Liberian government officials is not the prerogative of the Republic of Liberia. It's the prerogative of the United States of America. She chose to apply those sanctions on those individuals that she deemed necessary to do at her choosing. And she, as she clearly said, they are political sanctions. It is the responsibility of the government of Liberia to what? To investigate, to trial those who have misappropriated and stolen government funds. Those are two completely different things. Now, the government of Liberia can reach out to the U.S. who have applied sanctions on those individuals if those individuals are also under investigation. She can ask them for any evidence that supports their charging or their court process through the judiciary. So I think most of all of this here, as I said earlier, people are driven into government to make money as opposed to serving. And most of this, as Larry said earlier before he left, 3 consecutive years of decline in the economy. And I've been saying this for a long time. These guys basically did not know what they were doing. Mr. Gaiman, you're unapologetic a sedition. I think one of the most important things you could have done or should have done over the past 6 years was to lend your voice to advise, recommend, and suggest to the CDC leadership that they were on the wrong track. They were on the wrong track. And these guys did not make any investment in infrastructure, specifically electricity. I'm just going to put that out there, that would have stimulated and created jobs. And at the end of the day, what happened was everything contracted. The entire economy contracted, and whatever little money were in the coffers, they just went to town taking the money. That's how we got to this point. So I think the incoming leadership, President-elect Joseph Nyeman Boakai, along with his Vice President Jeremiah Kuhn, I think it's incumbent upon them. And as Mr. Adi said tonight, I think it's pillar number 6. Am I correct, Adi? That they would do everything possible to demonstrate leadership, and the chips will fall where they lie. And like I will end by saying this, as I said, I think that on the previous show, the most dangerous thing about Joseph Nyeman Boakai is I don't believe he's going to drive or push for re-election. He's focused on building and establishing a legacy. And when people are on the legacy road and focusing on that, they are going to walk down the middle of the road, unbending and uncompromising. So, I mean, I strongly believe that I have a strong degree of confidence that this leadership would do everything and leave no stone unturned. And I think, President-elect Boakai will severely warn those who are looking or seeking or hoping to come into government. If you know you can't do it and you know you have sticky fingers, stay out and go in the private sector, because if you do it, I will be very, very uncompromising in making sure that you will receive and be prosecuted at the full extent of the law. So that's my point. I think, Jefferson, Koji, and the rest of the people making all of their statements, I think they're just trying to present themselves amongst a crowd of people. Again, they created this situation, a large number of unemployed, a large number of idle people, nothing else to do, no jobs, no opportunities. So as a result, wherever to go, the crowd will always follow them. So that's just where we find ourselves today. Thank you. Back over to you. Back over to you, Dennis.
Mr. Carter, you're closing.
Can you guys hear me?
Go ahead, Mr. Carter.
All right, perfect. I want to maybe draw a line here in the sand. You know, I keep hearing everybody keep asking, what can the U.S. do? What can the U.S. do? I think, in a sense, we have gotten accustomed to this behavior that we become so dependent on the U.S. for every and everything that we're almost pretty much dependent on them for even to the way our country is supposed to be governed, right? And you hear it in the callers, you hear it in some of my colleagues here as well, even to a point, right? And I want to caution us a little bit. The U.S. I don't know if this is something we're forgetting. The U.S. only protects its economic interests, and that is it. They're not coming to save you, or they're not coming to protect yours. Like we keep saying, wherever their tax dollars are invested, they come in there to protect it. For you, if you are seeing that individual within our government are being corrupt, it is incumbent upon us as a country to go after those individuals. The U.S. only sanctioning those people because of the interference they're having with their tax dollars. So we need to get away from this behavior that the U.S. can do everything, is the mighty, oh God, that they're coming to save us. They're not. We're over 176 years old. They've never done that. They never will. So it's like they dangle this carrot in front of us. But in reality, if you look at things for what they're supposed to be, they're only protecting themselves. There's a degree of sovereignty here, right? They can only tell you these are the individual who are corrupt, right? You don't expect them to come in fully. That would be infringing upon our sovereignty. So they're now incumbent upon us to take the mantle from there. What information do you have on this individual? And now we place it in the hand of the legislature, the senators, and all those people to bring these people to account. But we're not doing that. We sing glory, hallelujah. Oh, the U.S. sanctioned these people. As I said earlier, there's 9 of them already. There are companies in our country that are on that list. Not one. Not one of them is brought to justice or indicted or brought to jail. But we're all here singing, the U.S. brought. This is what the sanction has done. It has become a pathway to bolster individual political career. You showed a video of Koji when Miguel and Cephas when they got sanctioned. Did we see what happened to them? Right? So one of them went and running for representative as a senator. So it has become a pathway to fame, because we do nothing in the country. We just wait and tie our hands and expect the U.S. government to do everything for us, even the way our country is supposed to be ran. Like, when are we going to come out as a people and say, okay, nobody is coming to save us? And this is something I need to get out of our mentality, that the U.S. government is in our interest. They're not. They protect their interests. Hey, we see these people meddling with our tax dollars. We're going to stay away from them. If you put right people in place who have integrity, we will start investing. We'll start bringing our tax dollars in that country again to protect, to invest in our interests in there. Whether you take actions on your part, that is incumbent. That is upon you. So we cannot keep asking, what can the U.S. do? The U.S. has already done enough. We need to take the authority in our own hands and muster up the strength and take action. And this is why I hope, and I think it was Philip that said it. I hope this incoming administration is able to do something to bring some of these people to bear the responsibility. But we cannot keep sitting here and thinking that the U.S. is coming to do anything for us. They are not going to do that. We need to take the authority in our own hand and defend ourselves and the economic interests of Liberian people.
Thank you. I think that most of them say the U.S. has already done her part, so I don't think they are expecting more. Mr. Ade, you're closing.
Thank you, Dennis, for this privilege, and please extend my greetings to Telvi for the opportunity as well. And thanks to all of you wonderful panelists. I've learned a lot. To my fellow Liberians, brothers and sisters, home and abroad, I understand that many times we've been stuck in the political nostalgia of the past. Elections are over. It's important that we come around as one nation, indivisible under God, with liberty and justice for all, around some common fundamental principles that will advance our nation. And one of those principles has to do with justice. If Liberia was moved forward beyond the political failures of the past, it's only imperative that we join hands together and fight for justice against those who are a select few that have stolen our resources and give them an opportunity to be exonerated by the law. Yes, while it's true we celebrate these sanctions, it is important for we as a nation to take the helm of power and do what needs to be done so that Liberia, once again in the words of Wilmar Talbot, can become a wholesome functioning society, where every young boy, young girl, or to posterity unborn can have an opportunity to sit back and be proud of a nation that we've left behind as a legacy. We've been around as a country for so long, but have yet to prove and celebrate the advancement of our infrastructure development, our socio-economic and political stability for such a long time. It is my hope that in spite of the fact that CDC lost these elections, campaign is over, we can come together as a people, one nation, indivisible, join hands together with this incoming government for the greater good of our country, irrespective of whether or not you're from Bassa or Nima County or wherever you're from. It's a nice thing to be tribal, but nationalism must prevail at all times for the greater good of our country. There are many of us living in these United States, as I close, that do seek to come home. But what are we coming home to? Do we prefer a nation that is absent of justice? A government that does not have a political will to establish an agenda that advances the economic empowerment of its people? I think it's time for us to make a decision, irrespective of your political leanings or your tribal affiliation. If Liberia must be that nation we can be proud of, it's important to note that it requires a sacrifice of all of us, irrespective of our politics. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Mr. Gilman.
Thank you very much. Thank you to the pastor for saying that he's a partisan. He's a member of the Unity Party. I thought as a preacher, he's a preacher for everybody. He's supposed to be praying for everybody. And I agree with you. You have your right to do so. And I like your...
If you have the right, then why are you saying that?
I'm saying this because as a preacher, he's a man of God. God does not belong... God, listen, God does not belong...
No pastor in the Republican Party you're part of?
So here we are. The preacher stated pillar number 6 on the Unity Party.
Did he say Unity Party?
Excuse me.
No, but Mr. Gamer, you can't.
Listen, I'm quoting the pastor. Pastor said pillar number 6.
Right, he read it.
I am not a member of the Unity Party.
Okay,
great. I'm not.
Okay, fine.
I'm a sympathizer and supporter of Joseph Boyka. I can tell you that.
Okay, there you go. So there we go. Thank you very much for sympathizing and supporting of Joseph Boyka. Anyhow, in closing, when we talk about sanctions, I think one of the reason I have issue with these people you call experts, and the reason I have issue with them is exactly that. For Mr. Phillips, I hope he's around for him to be on this platform to say that the Liberian government have never done anything in the energy sector, especially electricity. And yet, the World Bank and everybody just praise Monica Tam for connecting more Liberians to the grid. For this man to sit here and call himself energy expert, I don't know where he got that from, but it is a shame.
Go to the issue, man.
No, I'm telling you, that's exactly what it is. And then another expert says that the economy had declined for 36 consecutive months, but yet and still he didn't tell us which months he's talking about, because here I'm looking at the World Bank report, 2021, 2020, the economy grew 1.9%, 2021, 2.3%, 2022, 4.8%, 2023 is about to grow 4.3%. So I don't know where he's coming from with it. But anyhow, when we talk about sanctions, Okay? Sanctions, for me, like you say, I think my brother was right. America is only there to protect her interests. It is not about Liberia's interest. And only if you knew that, Liberia has to put together her own policies that would protect her interest. And this thing, I said it on this show a couple of months ago, when I saw my senator from Grand Bassa County and other senators going to the American embassy to interfere into our domestic affairs for resolution of our issues. I told you guys, I said, this is disarming our legislative body. You have issue, economic issue, you have judicial issue, and you can't solve it, and you are asking the American government and EU to come into your country to do this. It was dangerous. This is where we are headed to. We have lost our sovereignty. Most people feel very good if America says something other than if Joseph Walker says it or anybody else. And I think it's a bad precedent.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Kane.
Thank you very much, Dennis.
And go Miami Dolphins. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dennis. It was a good program. Like I said from the beginning, the three persons that were sanctioned today, I was only a bit surprised with Senator Nuquay, because I don't think he was on the radar, especially in the public. But I wasn't surprised that Samuel Tweah was sanctioned. I wasn't surprised that Chie was sanctioned. I think we've not talked about Chie. Chie has had a monopoly on our natural resource sector. In many instances, he controls the Ministry of Mines and Energy, where he used to work before under Ellen when Ellen sacked him. He has a lot of influence at the Department of Mining and I think engineering at the University of Liberia. So he's just in that sector cutting these deals and actually giving our resources out. So I think it's good that he was also brought to the radar. On the issue of Samuel Tweah, I think one of those scholars called and they were just going through this narrative. And you hear people saying like, bro, Samuel Tweah was a very good finance minister. And sometimes when people call that Ministry of Finance, it gets to me because every time we call it, I think we need to complete it. It's the Ministry of Finance and Development Planning. And in many instances, when people get appointed to that ministry, they forget about the whole issue of development planning and they just focus on finance. And that's what Samuel Tweah did. Just look for money, pay salaries, and just look for money to chop. That's the kind of finance minister he was. Nothing good. Nothing. Yeah. Put the money in a consolidated account, whether it's raw form money or this other money, just get it out and do anything you want to do. That is what Samuel Tweah did over the past 6 years. He developed his own PADP with UNDP support and he abandoned it. And we was just building projects around Monrovia. So it's good that they've been brought to the radar. This argument about our sovereignty. If we want our sovereignty, let's do things for ourselves. Let's not complain when somebody else come and maybe say something about it. I can say frankly, to an extent, it was almost like McCarthy was the president of Liberia over the past 6 years. Because George Weah was not a president. He wasn't doing anything. And somebody just mentioned it. Unity Party is being banned from running in election. And our senators go to the U.S. Embassy. Everything that happens, they go to the U.S. Embassy. Even for ministries, agencies, and commissions to have workshops in Liberia. Here is Ahmed. I used to work on public sector reform. They will still leave money in the budget and can't beg for workshop money. That's how our public sector is looking. And they will beg USAID for money. They beg Swedish Embassy for money. They beg the British for money. They just take the money all over and use it any way they want to use it. So I think if we want to really be a sovereign nation, let's do the work for ourselves. There is money in that country. Our economy is growing. It's over 3 billion now. We can use domestic revenue to be able to build that country. We've won some help here and there. As I conclude, everybody has said this, but if Joseph Boakai, the president-elect, cannot order the outgoing government and really give a signal that he's ready to fight corruption, that will be the beginning of his failure from day one. Because it has now been proven, the hell of the whole financial sector, they say he was corrupt. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
He is corrupt, not even was. He's still corrupt.
Mr. Salib, you got the last word.
Thank you. You're coming late. That's what happens. You get a benefit of the wisdom from so many. Look, last Saturday, Unity Party USA Minnesota chapter Friday, I think, invited me to be a keynote speaker at a dinner they organized here in Minnesota. I call it a victory dinner or something. And they asked me to speak about reconciliation and unity. You know, what I told them, it's a lot of what I'm hearing today, you're all re-echoing that. I made a case that until and unless we are able to introspect, look really, truly, sincerely within ourselves as Liberians, as a nation, as a people, and answer fundamental questions about who is it that we are. Why is it that we're not able to move our country forward? Why is it that we have the mindset that we have, this sort of minimalist mindset, right? I want to go to the public sector to get wealthy, not go into public service for the sake of public service, and running and living in a welfare state, essentially. That's what the state is. That's what we've turned ourselves into. Thomas is right. I mean, he and I worked for major donor government that provides aid to Liberia. The certain percentage, small percent, I think 10% or something of whatever aid that you get, you have to have what they call counterpart contribution. Even if it's just provide chairs for a conference or for a workshop, they will not do it. They will go back to another donor, ask for their counterpart contribution to give to be able to meet the counterpart contribution requirement of this other donor. They mean, how can we be like that? So we're all really regurgitating one another and saying the same thing in different ways. If you want to reconcile, I think avoiding accountability is not reconciliation. Being accountable, welcoming audits, for instance. If you led an agency, you are a professional, be happy to welcome an audit, because then exonerates you. It sets aside any perception of wrongdoing, on the part of the public, and people thought you did wrong. Audit will exonerate you, will clear your name. Right? So we cannot reconcile and beat the drums of reconciliation and say, let's just, move forward, don't go back and audit the prevailing government, or we are government, you do that as witch hunting. We will not get anywhere. And we are able and capable to build our country. I truly, truly believe that in our lifetime, if we can change our mindset, our attitude, we do have capable and competent Liberians all over the world, particularly here in the United States. And so tonight, I mean, the thing about the sanction, like everybody has said, the OFAC sanctions are about the United States government, national security, their economic and trade interests. It's not about the other sovereign countries' interests. However, it does affect your country's interests. It does affect your country's sovereignty and your politicians and what happens in our country. How other people do business with you, with your officials, with your politicians, with your citizens. The sanction can impugn the character of the country and of whether we like it or not. So these sanctions have consequences. It's not about, okay, it's Americans, it doesn't have anything to do with us. Yes, it does have something to do with us, whether we like it or not. So let's pick people who have integrity, and let's begin to truly, maybe these sanctions are in a way a mitigating factor of some sort. People don't want to be sanctioned. They get to office, they try their best to be less corrupt or not corrupt at all. That might help us. And so maybe something positive will come out of it. And so I just want to say that we should not downplay. While we don't want to say we invite Americans to do everything for us, nobody will build our country for us. Nobody will really help us to change our mindset unless we do it ourselves. At the same time, if they keep sanctioning us and sanctioning our government officials, it will impact our country. It will impact how we do business with others.
Hi, my name is Addie Tyler from Pennsylvania, and you're watching Focus on Liberia.
I want to thank you very much for your time. On that note, we're going to close the broadcast tonight, but not until we play the song that says, "We are all Liberians." Have a good night and God bless you.
We are Liberians. Liberia is our home. Liberian people. Liberia.